Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now on our 32nd episode of 2026. In Washington, Congress is still in summer recess with the House scheduled to return on August 31st and the Senate on September 14th. You know, this post-Labor Day stretch is going to be particularly important for Hill engagement, given the limited legislative window we have before midterms. FBA is continuing to work to advance permitting reform and rural connectivity. At the FCC, the FBA is submitting reply comments on USF high cost program proceeding due September 4th. We're working on our comments for the FCC's Section 253 proceeding focused on whether states and local practices are creating obstacles to broadband deployment, such as lengthy permitting and authorization delays. So initial comments are due on September 21st. And the Fiber Broadband Association's next regional Fiber Connect workshop will be held in Omaha. Beautiful Omaha. We'll be there next Tuesday, August 25th. So we hope you'll join us. We just had an amazing time in Bozeman. And as you guys know, our regional events are fantastic. So after Omaha, we'll be in Boston in September, Savannah in October, Vancouver, British Columbia in November. We'll finish out the year with our premier member meeting in Islamorada, Florida in December. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest was Darren Farnan, the general manager of United Fiber, to discuss Beyond the Build, monetizing fiber for long-term advantage. I'm always so impressed with United Fiber's success. Their electric co-op serves 7,500 electric members, but they built fiber broadband to 60 communities and have 95,000 fiber passings with 45,000 broadband subs. So I just think it's just amazing that you can have 7,500 members, but 45,000 broadband subscribers. So just seeing how the broadband revenue helps to keep their electric rate base supported, keep their rates low, and really supports the electric part of their business. So Darren shared some of his secrets and to all that success. So if you missed it, you can come watch our replay on our website. Today, for Fiber Breakfast, our guest is Janet Rehberg, the EPB president and CEO-Elect, to discuss EPB's quantum computer, from municipal energy to quantum tech. Janet was named EPB's president and CEO-Elect in September 2025, with more than 2 decades of engineering, operational, and strategic leadership in the electric industry. She's focused on strengthening EPB's mission to enhance the quality of life and position Chattanooga for the future. Prior to EPB, Janet served as the Chief Strategy Officer and Vice President of Engineering for the Tri-County Electric Cooperative in Aledo. Is that how you say it, Aledo?
Yeah, Aledo.
Texas, where she's responsible for formulating strategy and oversaw a wide range of departments, including operational engineering groups. She previously held leadership roles with American Electric Power, where she helped lead grid modernization initiatives to strengthen system reliability and support emerging techs. Janet earned a BS in electrical engineering from University of Tulsa and an MBA from Capital University. She serves on the board of Hunter Museum of Art, American Art, and contributes to numerous nonprofit and community professional organizations. So with all that, welcome, Janet. We're so thrilled to have you here. We're such big fans of EPB and everything that you guys do. For our audience, please type in your questions to go and work those into our Q&A. So with that, I will turn things over to Janet.
Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you very much for having me on this episode today. Very excited to be here, and I'm very honored that EPB has chosen me to be the next CEO, and I will step into that capacity within the next couple of weeks, starting on September 1st. So very honored and excited about that. So for us to get started, I love to kind of talk about a brief overview about EPB for those who's out there listening and may not know who EPB is. So we are one of the larger municipal utility in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we have over 200,000 energy customers and over 130,000 fiber customers. We have the energy side, a very advanced automated grid in the nation. But, in the early 2000s, when a lot of utility was thinking about how do you automate the grid, so did EPB. And one of the things that we were thinking as we're thinking through that process is how do we control those devices to be able to talk to each other? And so that's when EPB started to get into the fiber optic network business on that. And so in 2008, we started to roll it out. And in 2009, we were able to roll out fiber network throughout our entire service territory. And not only were we able to use it to help automate our grid, but we also offered it as a service to our customer. So we offered internet, telephone, and video services. And that was in 2009. And 1 year after that, we thought, why not go big? At the time, internet services was maybe a few hundred megabits. So we decided, let's go 1 gig. And so we were the first utility that went to 1 gig and put Chattanooga on the map as being the first city to be 1 gig. So we're very excited and proud of that. And since then, we continue to increase our speed, and we now offer up to 25 gig. And if you really need higher gig than that, come talk to us. We can make it happen. And one thing I do want to wrap up before we get off the slide is I want to thank all of our customers for being such great customers, and we are very, very honored that they have ranked us on the J.D. Powers as being the #1 electric utility in the South for 10 consecutive years. So we're very appreciative and thankful for their business. All right, so how do we get into quantum? So we actually got into that business by accident. Over a decade ago, in 2016, the Department of Energy had a pilot project. They wanted to test quantum technology using the grid to see how we can secure 2 substations. And at the time, they brought partners in. So they had Oak Ridge National Lab, Los Alamos National Lab, Cubatech, which is a startup quantum company out in San Diego. And of course, if this is about securing the grid, they need an electric utility. At the time, they actually had conversation with a utility out in California. And as the partnership was starting to come together, that utility sort of pulled out last minute in the project. So based on our relationship with the Department of Energy and our reputation in the fiber network, we got a call from them, and DOE said, we would love for you guys to participate in this project, but due to our time crunch, can you respond within 48 hours? And so we had a very quick turnaround time. And our CEO, David Wade, at the time, he joked and he said, I couldn't even spell quantum at the time, but I knew this was an opportunity and it was something that we had to be a part of. And so through that partnership, we were able to win as a partner the R&D 100 Award and the Edison Gold. And so that was when David saw a huge opportunity and thought, could this bring value to our community the way that our fiber business did 15 years ago? So just to backtrack a little bit, last year in 2025, we engaged Dr. Bento Lobo of the University of Chattanooga, Tennessee, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, to do an independent study on the value of our fiber network to our community. And what he found was that our network has brought over $5.3 billion in community benefit and helped retain and recruited over 10,000 jobs. That is huge for our community here in Chattanooga. So we thought, could quantum be that next wave that could bring that type of community benefit at that level, if not more? So that's when we decided to venture deeper into it. And so in 2023, EPB was the first to introduce a first commercially available quantum network that's here in Chattanooga. And so any academia, national lab, or startup quantum company who want to test their product in quantum security, quantum networking, could come and do it for a fraction of the cost. So we wanted to be able to use this to help accelerate the quantum space. Now, those out there who's listening today, I'm assuming not everyone's a quantum physicist out there. So you're probably thinking, what is quantum networking? What's the difference between your classical network versus quantum network? So if you don't mind, I'm going to break it down a little bit here. So for example, if I'm here trying to send confidential information to Gary, let's make it very simple. Let's say I put that piece of confidential information into a sealed envelope and I send it over to Gary. Gary sees it and he opens it, but he doesn't know if someone has tried to hack or eavesdrop into our conversation. So then with today's classical network technology, how to protect it is we use kind of what they call a key distribution. So let's take it up a notch. Now I'm going to take the same piece of confidential information, but I'm going to put it this time in a lockbox. And Gary's going to have a key. So when he gets it, he's going to use that key to unlock it. But again, we don't know if somebody out there also has a key, was able to hack into it, looked at it, locked it back up, and send it Gary's way. So now quantum technology, how does it secure it? You know, the fiber network, whether it's aerial fiber or underground fiber, it's all the same technology as classical fiber. But the quantum components that we add to it is what helps it, makes it more secure. Quantum has a principle called entanglement. It produces a twin. What happens to one twin happens to the other twin. So let's imagine here that we have these quantum envelopes, these blue pair of twin. I have and both twin has exact same information. So I'm going to keep one and I'm going to send it to Gary, and Gary decides he was going to go travel the world and he's in Australia. So no matter the distance, I'm sending him this piece of confidential information. Well, immediately when someone tries to look at it, both envelope will change. Because remember, the principle of entanglement is when something happens to one, it happens to the other one. So without me having to call Gary, Gary's all the way in Australia, he knows immediately that our information has been compromised. So I know I'm breaking this down very simple, complex. This is a very complex topic. We're breaking down very simply. So I hope it helps our audience understand how quantum security, quantum networking takes our classical networking to that whole new security level. And that's why, being that we are in the energy space, making sure that we secure the data that's coming from our electric grid through our fiber network is very, very critical. So then we thought, what's next? Because the quantum space is very vast. So the McKinsey study said that quantum computing could deliver $2.7 trillion in economic value to companies worldwide by 2035, which is not that far away if they're one of the first movers in that. So that's when we decided, and when we looked at all those companies that could benefit from it, just in Chattanooga, there was a number of those companies already. So then we went to our board and in April of 2025 and asked them to approve for us to purchase an IonQ Forte enterprise computer. And they allowed us to do that. And so our computer is being built in our quantum center today and should be operational very, very soon. And we're very excited about that. So again, now I talked about quantum networking. Now we're venturing into quantum computing. How does that work? If you think about a classical computer today, the way it solves problem is very sequential. If you think about a maze, for instance, you look at one path, that path got blocked, didn't work, let's start over. Let's look at another path. That path didn't work, let's start over. Let's look at another path. And it does it very sequentially, one at a time, until it finds that path to get out of that maze. Now, quantum has a principle called superposition. And what it does is it can look at all those paths in parallel, and it can able to find that most optimal solution within fraction of a time. And so here's an example here, as you can see, this maze here, the quantum computer, how much more quickly, efficiently that it can solve that problem than a classical computer. So if you think about industry use cases today, as problems become more and more complex, it's just going to be harder for classical computer to solve, and it could take over a lifetime to be able to solve. And if we can team, especially when you think about AI, if you can team it with a quantum computer, we're able to solve things much quicker, more efficiently, and use less energy. So that's very important, especially for us who's in the energy space, that as more and more demand is constraining our energy, this is another way to kind of to help us be able to control that energy demand. Why is EPB getting into this, outside of some of the opportunities that could help our fiber side secure our network and optimize our grid is, EPB, we're an infrastructure company. We have energy, we have fiber networking, and now we have quantum. And what we want to do is use that infrastructure to continue to build a great ecosystem, whether it's bringing in more dollars from our government, local, state, federal, to be able to help our community, bring in great talented mind from academias, bring in great startups, and how do we help our existing industry? So just to recap, just what the quantum ecosystem has already done here in Chattanooga. Let's recap that. So in 2016, when we got into quantum by accident, we were in it for a partnership that won the R&D 100 and Edison Gold Award that helped us learn the value and the opportunity what quantum can bring to our ecosystem and into our community. And so in 2023, as I mentioned, we introduced the first commercially available quantum network to help accelerate that space. And in that same year, we were able to work with UTC to bring a dedicated quantum node to their campus. They're the first campus in the nation who has a dedicated quantum node connected to a commercial network. And since then, they've opened up, a quantum center with more degrees and certifications. So they're growing rapidly on their side of the academia space. And then in 2025, as I mentioned there, we went to our board to see if we can get a quantum computer. And we did. And part of our negotiation with IonQ to buy a computer from them is that we said, in order for us to buy a computer from you, we want to build the ecosystem. You're going to have to put an office in Chattanooga and have at least 10 people, in that office here in Chattanooga. And so that's continuing to help our ecosystem, our economy here. And then in that same year, in 2025, we had a partnership with Vanderbilt, where they announced that they were bringing a campus, not a virtual, type of training. They're bringing a physical campus to downtown Chattanooga, and expect in the next 3 to 5 years to have over 250 faculty, staff, and students, which will continue to build those great minds and talent to help accelerate Chattanooga. And this year, in 2026, IonQ recently announced, if you all have seen, that they're investing $15 million into Chattanooga, bringing an R&D research center around quantum memories and repeater to help us be able to extend and grow our quantum network. And that's, they're going to be bringing in brilliant scientists from all over the world to be able to staff this quantum center, or this quantum R&D center, which we're really excited about. And then finally, what's coming on October 1st is EPB will be hosting a first Quantum in Business Summit. And that's on October 1st here in Chattanooga, where we hope that all of the different existing industry in Chattanooga, in Tennessee, and we welcome any industry across the nation who's interested in learning what is quantum and how do we use quantum to help optimize our business. That is the day we can come and share that information, and let's work together and brainstorm how we can do all that together. Because EPB really, here in Chattanooga, we all believe that potentially we can enter into the future quantum internet realm, where that's really going to be able to transform how we all live, work, and play. So it's a very exciting time for all of us, and we're very excited to see how it has grown and accelerated just within Chattanooga in the last few years. And we want to continue to grow and be part of that as the quantum internet comes in the future. And with that, I'm going to take a pause, and I'm going to throw it back to Gary to see if there's any questions for me.
Well, Janet, this is super exciting. And, we were just in Bozeman with our regional event a couple weeks ago, and, they have 2 quantum computers at the university, or Montana State University. And it's so exciting you guys now have a quantum computer. You mentioned 2 of the 3 key things, right, that quantum does, right, is that superposition you mentioned, entanglement you mentioned, but quantum sensors, that has to be critical to, when you think of weather events and things like that, to really, for protect the grid. Can you talk a little bit about those 3 key elements and how that, when you look at it from as an energy provider?
And actually the way that I look at the quantum space, there's actually sort of like 4 pillars. And one of them sort of kind of combined with each other. So you have the networking, you have the computing, application, and sensing. So the computer and application kind of goes in line. So I could see it being more of a 3-legged stool there. Quantum sensing is something EPB has not ventured into yet, but that is going to be, that is definitely in our roadmap. And we've been talking to, our academia partners, our startup partners, and other energy partners, including TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, who is our generation transmission provider, on how do we partner on a quantum project to look at quantum sensing. So we don't have a project today, but that's definitely something we are looking into. As you can say, sensing with weather prediction, even with the earth movement, with earthquakes, any of that will affect where we want to build or how it affects our infrastructure today. So there's so many opportunities, even in quantum sensing, that we could do just on the energy space as well as other industry.
So one of the questions came in from our audience is, when you think about quantum computers, and even quantum repeaters that, you typically use supercooling to slow down the qubits so that, you can get entanglements and do all the things that manipulate that. Is that the environment, or is your quantum computer going to be supercooled, or what's the environment?
That's a really good question. I think most people, when they think about quantum computing, they think about the IBM superconducting computer. And so they think about the really pretty, that crystal chandelier looking computer. And that takes a lot of cooling power to be able to make sure those qubits are stabilized and work properly. So we ended up choosing IonQ Forte Enterprise because their type of technology is what they call ion trap. And so they don't require the type of cooling as a superconducting type of computer, such as an IBM. And so the reason we were interested in IonQ is their strategy, their roadmap is as the computer gets more and more powerful, it doesn't necessarily have to be bigger physically. That their goal is to be able to network multiple computers together to be able to grow that capacity. And so it aligns sort of kind of what EPB's roadmap is. If we already have a network, and we're bringing in a computer, how do we, our community, be part of being able to grow the computing power for computers by networking multiple computers? And as we expand with our network and we grow the computation, how do we all play into that scenario? And so that was part of the reason why we chose to go with an ion trap computer. And our quantum space is in downtown Chattanooga, and there's very limited space. So we also need a computer that could fit easily in a normal center space where we have just few racks to be able to put the computer versus something that was going to require us having to find extra land or rebuild and with cooling system. So to answer kind of long-winded way is that the type of technology on quantum computing that we chose doesn't require us to have that extreme cooling or even the space constraint as some of the other types of quantum computers. And I do want to mention, Gary, you mentioned the university having computer. I think the thing that sets us apart by having a quantum computer is it's in a commercial space. So companies can actually they can purchase hours on our computer and access both our network and our computer because it's a commercial space, unlike some of the academias or national labs that have them.
We have a documentary that's out on all the streaming service, and Katie Espeth at EPB, she talks about how Walter Cronkite had basically said all kinds of bad things about Chattanooga, and the EPB and others said we're not going to allow Chattanooga to be have such a bad reputation, and did all these great things. And one is to become the first gigabit city, and the first 10 gig city, first 25 gig city, first commercial quantum network. And when I listened to that documentary, one of the things when you had a gig is the fact that all of a sudden startups started flocking to Chattanooga to be able to take advantage of having that much capacity, and now 25 gig is in your network. So what is that something similar now that you have a commercial quantum network, that all these startups and businesses can flock to Chattanooga so that they too can share in being able to leverage this quantum technology you have?
That is definitely our hope, that it will be replicating kind of the success we had with the fiber business, and if not more with the quantum space. So, you bring up a good point about, how our fiber network has really enhanced, created, and retained jobs that were coming in. And we didn't even realize the potential opportunity of our fiber network when we started with it back then, 15 years ago. And, I would say one of the biggest testament to the success of our fiber network was during COVID. In 2020, two things happened to the world. Everybody had to quickly figure out how to do remote work and remote schooling. And, we had all the fiber network throughout our service territories. We had the bandwidth needed for people to do remote work. And we saw an uptick on individuals even moving to the area, because if they had to work from home. It didn't matter where they were living. So why not choose a beautiful city? And it's funny you talk about Walter Cronkite saying it was the dirtiest city back then. How much has Chattanooga changed? We were voted, I believe, the national park city, beautiful scenic city. And so we saw a lot of people coming in because they want to live here with the mountains and the water, but they have fast internet and the bandwidth they needed to work from home. But the second part was, how do you do remote schooling? And that was very difficult for a lot of communities to figure out during that time, because it happened so abruptly. I was living in Ohio at the time, and we were struggling to try to figure out how do we help our students do remote schooling, especially those are in the more the low income sector, right? That's more difficult. So our community, Hamilton County, got together with all of our great companies around town, and within days was able to fund and, a very few weeks, put together a fund that helped every single low-income students to be able to have access to internet to do remote schooling. And that fund, that program is called Hamilton County Ed Connect Program. And it wasn't just to help 1 year, it wasn't just to help 2 years, it's to help 10 plus years, and it's still continuing to this day. So we're continuing trying to grow that program. We have helped over 28,000 students and family in the low income sector through that program. So there's things that I think quantum will continue to bring value, the way that the fiber network brought value that we don't even think about today. And so that's very exciting, as we see today's potential, but there may be even more potential that we haven't even seen or discovered.
One of the audience comments is this seems very, very expensive. Is there a way to, from revenue generation from your quantum investment, or is the investment reduced, the cost recouped from improving your grid, reducing outages and reducing maintenance and so forth? Or is it kind of both?
Yeah, so, when we ventured into the networking side, one of the partners early on was Cubatech out of California. And, they were a startup. And so, they came to Chattanooga to help us build our quantum network. And we truly believe in developing our startups. And so we had a warrant in their contract that said that because we believe that quantum space was going to grow, and that they had such a unique skill set and product that we knew that they were going to grow. So we had a warrant in our contract to say, if you were going to grow, get acquired, that we will get a portion of that sell. And when they were acquired by IonQ at the end of 2024, a portion of that sell came back to us that helped us pay for that network. And more. And so you're already seeing the payback on that. So that helped us continue to invest in the quantum space. And so we invested in the quantum computing side, and we have some grants that's helping us, as well as our own investment. But our goal is, when our computer is operational, is we're going to be able to sell the hours coming off of those computers, off of our computer, to industries, to academia, national labs, because it's still a scarce resource. And we'll be able to sell it to generate some revenue, but ultimately it's going to help, those industry optimize their business to bring revenue back to them as well. If every industry now goes out and buys a quantum computer, that's very expensive for every industry. So if we have one here and we're selling it at a fraction of a cost for you to use it to build algorithm to optimize your business and make better revenue, then it's a win-win for everyone. And so now the thing to think about is, how do you develop talent? And that's why we have UTC and we have Vanderbilt, and just announced we have a K through 12 program called Tennessee Works in Chattanooga that's going to be starting to develop even the young generation that's going into that pipeline. So that's very exciting for us. And so we continue to kind of build that ecosystem through academia, bringing in startups to continue to expand that and helping our existing industry. And that's why Quantum and Business Summit is so important, is for the industry themselves, whether you're financial, logistics, automotive, energy, every sector has a way to help optimize your business and help to improve your revenue model as well. And there are industries that we haven't even thought about that has approached us. The Tennessee Aquarium, entertainment industry, there's just a lot that's very interested that we've been having a lot of conversations around.
Well, I mean, if I look at EPB's mission, it seems fully aligned to enhance quality of life and position Chattanooga for the future. So, especially when we think about, I was talking about my second favorite quantum physicist, Duncan Earle, always talks about Q-Day, which is coming very quickly, to be able to, as quantum computers are able to crack the encryption on the internet, and we have to now move to quantum encryption. You guys in Chattanooga seems very well positioned to keep the network secure, to keep the businesses secure in Chattanooga that leverage your quantum technology. Is that another way you guys look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. Q-Day has been, that big buzz that has been going around in a scary way. So quantum computer could be used for the good, in optimizing business. But, when it's in the wrong hands in countries that are not allies to us, that is the fear, is that quantum computer eventually could get good enough that it could break encryption all across the nation. And so we want to be ahead of that game to make sure that we think about how do we ensure that post-quantum, what they call post-quantum encryption, that we are able to be ready for post-quantum cryptography, PQC. Sorry, I'm thinking of the term there, that we're ready for it, right? So that's exactly one of the pieces why we also got into it, was to make sure we're a critical infrastructure, being an energy and fiber network communication company. How do we make sure that we're ahead of the game as well too?
Well, David Wade, it's been such a visionary in our industry, and it's great to see that you're going to take things to the next level. And congratulations. I look forward to, when they hand over the reins to you as CEO in a few weeks. And just thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing in Chattanooga in our industry. So this is just super exciting, Janet.
Thank you, Gary. And thank you again for having me on this episode.
All right. Well, I hope everybody joins us again next week. Next Wednesday, you're going to have Michael Weening, the CEO of Calix, to discuss the predictability imperative, how AI is helping fiber providers compete in uncertain markets. You're not going to want to miss that. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We look forward to seeing you hopefully in Omaha on Tuesday, and then back on Fiber for Breakfast Wednesday.